Hello everyone, it's Joe here from Snake Draft FPL. Today we are looking at high potential assets. Few players that I'm quite excited about for the upcoming season. I've got in the video where I've currently ranked them so far, subject to change of course. You can of course see my full rankings over on the Patreon. They will be released on the channel in a week or two, so don't panic. Before we get into the players, I just want to shout out the Competitive Draft FPL League network that I'm one of the admins for. We're currently trying to fill 3 more leagues for our Pyramid League system, which has promotion and relegation each year, as well as League Cups, FA Cup, Champions League, Manager of the Month, and basically everything else you can think of. It's $30 entry for the season, which goes towards prizes. We have over 120 competitive managers so far, so if you think you're decent at Draft FPL, then test yourself against some of the best. All the leagues are managed on the app Discord. There's a link in the description below to the Discord channel. Go and check it out. Let's get stuck into the video. All the data that you see on screen today is courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub. There is a link in the description below if you want to go and check that out. There is a discount code on offer at the moment, so follow that link in the description and you can get your hands on all this data. Okay, the first player we're looking at today is Phil Foden. Mahrez has now left City, so I think there's a massive opportunity for Phil Foden this season. I think because he had that kind of appendix issue last year and he was out the team for a long spell, he's kind of fallen off people's radar a little bit. I currently have him ranked at number 15 and I think he's going to be a really good asset this year. I think he's probably going to be first choice on the right unless they make a massive signing. I think he's actually probably first choice in one of the central midfield roles as well, but obviously you can't play them both. But I think that it's always nice to have a player that's first choice in 2 different positions. He's very versatile in that way, and his data from last year was actually really good. Obviously he didn't play as much minutes as we would have liked, but I've got a feeling this year, especially with the likes of De Bruyne looking like his fitness is failing a little bit, I think Foden's primed for an absolutely massive year, and it's someone I think if you can get him in the second round, he's going to complement your main attacker really well. Next up we've got Nkunku, obviously new to the league this year with Chelsea. I've currently got him ranked at number 17, so sort of mid to late second round, and I do think he's going to be great value there. Listed as a forward, which is very handy for draft because there aren't that many forwards about. I don't think he's always going to play up front. I think there's quite a decent chance he's going to play number 10 or sort of a second striker role, which I think is probably his best position. You can see on here I've got from Who Scored his overall ratings from last season in each position. So he's definitely much more effective through the middle as a striker or as a number 10, but he's decent off the right as well. And we've got the Who Scored strengths here as well: dribbling, passing, finishing, through balls, key passes. These are all fantastic traits that you look for in a fantasy asset. Good goal scorer, good assist threat, and he's so versatile that I think he's going to play the vast majority of games under Poch. Poch has already been talking him up in the preseason so far. I think he's going to be starting the vast majority of games, and I personally am quite excited about his prospects. Next up we have Mbeumo, probably my most drafted player in draft history. Since they've been promoted, I've had him basically every season. He's frustrated me every time I've owned him, and what can I say? I just can't resist but go back in for him, to be honest. But this season, I say this all the time, but this season I think it's going to be different. He's such a well-rounded player in terms of fantasy potential. You can see from his radar there, he's got good goal threat, good assist threat. With Tony out the picture until January, he's going to be almost certainly on penalties. I don't think he's going to be playing through the middle up front. I think that's probably likely to be Wissa or Sharda, both of whom look like decent picks, especially Wissa seems to have the spot in pre-season at the moment. But Mbeumo, with the addition of penalties, is a really good pick in my opinion. He's going to be taking a lot more responsibility throughout the team as well. Tony likes to shoot all the time, so he does take up a large percentage of Brentford's shot share, so there are going to be more shots on offer for other players, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mbeumo does take up the mantle in that quite significantly. I've currently got him ranked at number 34. If you can get him in that 4th round, I think that's a really, really good place to get him. I'd maybe potentially take him a little bit earlier than that if I think the draft is going in the direction where I need a consistent attacker. But for my money, mid-round 4 is just about right. Next up, we've got Morgan Gibbs-White, someone I heavily used last season, especially in the second half of the season where he really started to come into his own at Forest a little bit. I think we can expect a really strong season from him this year. He's by far Forest's most creative player. He's definitely their best attacking asset in my opinion. He links up really well with Brennan Johnson and Awoniyi. They've made some decent signings. They've got the players that they signed last year bedded in a little bit more. I actually think Forest are probably going to have a pretty decent season this year. A lot of people are kind of slating them to go down, but I personally think they will stay up and they might just have a crack at a mid-table finish this year. I really do think Morgan Gibbs-White is a very strong asset and definitely not someone to be overlooked. I think the 4th round is perfectly reasonable time to draft him. If he's your 4th attacker, I think you're doing well. You can tell from his heat map he plays all across the final third, has a decent amount of touches around the penalty spot as well, which is a good sign for a midfielder, and I think he is someone that I'm definitely going to be trying to get in. In the very next slot in the rankings is Evan Ferguson. Currently have him at number 37, and I think this is the season we really see him blow up. It would not surprise me at all if this time next year I'm tipping him in the 2nd round in somewhere near that Ollie Watkins ballpark. All we need to see from him, in my opinion, is consistent minutes. That's the last piece of the puzzle. He's definitely got the talent. His minutes per goal ratio is fantastic. He's such a well-rounded player, and you can see from the stats there, in just the small amount of games he did play, he absolutely racked up the shots and the XG, and I really think that he is due for a massive season this year. He's still so young, but I do think he's far superior to the likes of Danny Welbeck and Undav, and I think he's going to be playing for he's going to be first choice this season, and those guys are going to be picking up the scraps of the minutes, and hopefully we see Ferguson averaging 60-70 minutes per game, and I think if that's the case, he's an absolute bargain in the 4th round. The only reason he's not higher is because we're just not sure about the minutes. I really do think he's a fantastic footballer and just a really, really strong goal scorer. It's been confirmed today that Wilfried Zaha's gone to Galatasaray, so I think that Eze is going to really benefit from that. He does favour playing that slightly left-sided number 10 role, and I think with Zaha out the team, it actually benefits him. He had a really kind of surprisingly strong season last year. He was in and out of people's waivers all year, but actually his points tally, that's kind of unjustified. He should have been a mainstay in people's teams, but the way that the points came about, it didn't really seem like he was that strong of an asset, but in reality he actually was. I mean, his total points for last year was brilliant, and I think the 5th round for me is about right. To be honest, I don't think he's that much different from the likes of Matoma or Morgan Gibbs-White, so if you're going to pick them in the 4th round, I could also see him in around that sort of band as well. I definitely wouldn't argue with you there. There's a real big group of midfielders, I think, that are really, really close together in around that sort of 35 to 50 range, and Eze is certainly one of them. I really, really think he's due for a really good year. He's such a fun footballer to watch as well, which makes a big difference because you can actually enjoy the players you're rooting for in your draft team. Next up, someone that I think in previous years has actually been overrated as a draft FPL asset. Absolutely fantastic player, don't get me wrong. Bruno Guimaraes is a world-class central midfielder, but in the previous years he has been playing way too deep for me to ever consider him. I think people that have been taking him in the 6th, 7th round in the past few seasons have been vastly overvaluing the importance of how skilled a footballer is and not really paying too much attention to where he's actually playing on the pitch. But I think that might all change now they've brought in Tonali. I think Tonali's going to play in that deepest midfield role, and we will see Guimaraes moved up a little bit closer to that sort of number 8, number 10 role where he can really get some points on the board. I mean, you can see from his radar, His through balls are top class. He is literally like in the 99th percentile for through balls. So if he can get further, closer to the box, we know he's got a great shot on him as well. I could see then the points start to come in a little bit more consistently as he's playing further up the pitch, which hopefully we will see this season, because he would be a really fun asset if he was involved in the attacks a little bit more often. I think there's also an argument that because Newcastle have kind of developed a little bit last season, there'll be more teams that are playing a little bit deeper and a little bit more reserved against them, which means Newcastle can have higher possession further up the pitch, which again leads into someone like Guimaraes playing centrally and camping on the edge of opponents' boxes. Lastly today, we are looking at Jacob Ramsey, another favourite of my waiver videos, someone that I don't think will be on the waivers too much this year. Since Emery came in, Ramsey's been playing really well along with the entire Villa side. He's been playing predominantly on the left-hand side, which is perfectly good for him because he's very good at coming in off that wing and getting on the end of chances. His stats aren't that good, but he's only really had about 15 games of decent data because the rest of the season was wasted by poor management and just a bad team display. But I do think you can tell from those last 10-15 matches he really came into his own and managed to start racking up the points, and I think that's just going to continue into this upcoming season. Very high on Jacob Ramsey. I think he's a really talented player and someone I'm definitely looking to sneak into that sort of fourth midfield spot. You know, he's not quite in the punt territory, but it's someone that you'd be happy to start against pretty much any opponent because you know he can pop up with a goal or an assist at any time. Okay, that wraps up my high potential assets for the upcoming season. If you want to view my whole rankings, remember to check that out, the Patreon in the description below. Alongside the rankings, we've got all sorts of other articles and stuff that can help you with your draft, and there's more coming in the next couple of weeks as we build up to the start of the season. Thank you to Fantasy Football Hub for supplying the radars and the heat maps. Check out their description in the link below and you can get yourself some money off there. Remember to look at the Discord if you are interested in leagues. I think that's just about everything. So like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we will see you next time.